Pacifico is a Mexican lager brewed to be discovered. It's like fresh tracks on a powder day. Like that uncharted trail a stone's throw away. Like the perfect wave on a sunny day. Pacifico. Find your own way. 21 plus. Drink responsibly. Imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
The Who's down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, authorities in Pennsylvania removed children and made arrests based on findings by a doctor who specialized in identifying child abuse. But critics say she was too eager to diagnose abuse when none had occurred. We'll talk about the podcast, The Preventionist, from Serial Productions and the New York Times. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband, and the love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us, private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, it's our resident doubting Thomas, author of podcasts such as the soon-to-be motion picture Strange Arrivals, Rip Current, new season out now, and More Like Ancient Aliens, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin, this is Thursday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on Monday's show?
On Monday, we're going to talk about podcast Scorched Earth. It's a really interesting courtroom drama.
All right. I'm looking forward to listening to that one. Guys, I just want to tell you, I mentioned in one of our Amazon sections a couple weeks ago that I was doing a closet project.
Mm-hmm.
There was a big fucking mishap that I just want to briefly put out there. But I almost didn't make it here this week.
Oh.
I was carrying something to this closet, which is also where our like workout stuff is. But like right now, it's just like giant piles of clothes. And I fell into my rowing machine. I didn't trip on my rowing machine. I tripped into my rowing machine and I couldn't get out.
Oh.
And I was calling Kevin and Kevin had his headphones on and didn't hear me. So I had to crawl out like a spider and I have huge bruises and scrapes down my leg and everything, some shaped like a straight line, which is very funny. And Kevin was no help and I almost died.
I would still be looking for her, waiting for dinner. I wonder where she went.
Where did she go? Where did she go? But when you fall at our age, man.
This is the thing about getting to a certain age is like you have these random accidents and then you get bruised and you're like, how the hell did I get so bruised from like literally, I don't know. I mean, I fell down the stairs whenever that was a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, this is where this could be the end of me. Or like I trip over a cat. Yeah. Nobody finds me.
That's that. And that's that. So anyway, I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah.
Not grateful to Kevin because he had his headphones on. But anyway, it's really nice to see you all. I feel very affirmed by life right now. All right, Kevin, should we talk about the thing that we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, let's do that.
Leading off.
They wanted to make sure the baby was okay, so they sent him to the ER.
We saved his life that night. But upon arriving at Lehigh Valley Hospital, the diagnosis quickly became something so different, something nobody could have ever prepared me for.
An official in Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley made a troubling discovery about the county's Office of Youth Services. Workers were taking action against a large number of families based on the diagnosis of a hospital specialist, diagnoses that were frequently proven wrong. He argued money was wasted and lives were destroyed by an overabundance of caution from one doctor.
This mess was created by Dr. Jensen's false allegations.
I'd like to see this council, this county, this state get rid of this Debra Jenssen.
Please assure Dr. Jensen is removed.
Debra Jenssen.
Dr. Jenssen.
Dr. Jenssen.
Debra Jenssen.
I'm going to summarize. Get rid of Dr. Jensen and fix the system because it's broken.
Dr. Debra Jenssen made a career in multiple states, finding signs of abuse others hadn't found and strong-arming authorities to take action against unsuspecting caretakers. Parents, social workers, and even judges claim the specialist too often misdiagnosed illness or accident as trauma, rejected contrary evidence, and upended families in a misguided effort to protect children.
The reporting took me into court filings and workplace dramas in several states, from New York to Florida to Pennsylvania, and raised a new question. Did anyone ever stop, look around, and ask, what are we doing?
The podcast, The Preventionist from Serial Productions and the New York Times, explores the rise of a powerful new field in medicine and the consequences of its, quote, better safe than sorry application by one doctor. Host Dyan Neary also highlights the story of a family trying to piece itself together after authorities took action on a questionable diagnosis of child abuse. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from The Preventionist. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Now, Laura, I know that you don't always easily get through the things that you're assigned, especially when you find them uninteresting.
Right.
But this was not one of those things for you.
Oh, no, I binged this. I was out driving around and I kept driving so that I could finish it. I thought this was excellent. As somebody who has worked in the field of criminal defense, I've worked on cases defending false abuse claims. And I think people often are like, nobody would make up something like that, or that's just them trying to get out of something. I'm like, no, there are legitimate claims of false abuse all the time in family court cases, all the time. And this illustrated this in a way I was enraged listening to it. I was like, go for these people that were trying to take action. It was something where I could relate to so much of it because of the type of work that I've done. And I've seen people that I know go through things like this. And it's just something that I feel, and I delved into Reddit, which I shouldn't have done because everyone there is like, that's a bunch of bullshit. There's no such thing as false abuse claims. And people are like really angry about this podcast. And I'm like, no, there are legitimate cases where you do have situations like this. And as they said in this podcast, two different doctors could see two different things.
Right.
So I thought this was a really interesting issue for them to take on.
I think so too, especially given all the new research on shaken baby syndrome and the lack of evidence therein for many of those cases. But Kevin, this is a hard barrier for a lot of people to get over, such as those Redditors, thinking that you shouldn't, or examining the possibility that you shouldn't take a doctor's claim that a child has been abused at face value. Like, that is a hard barrier for somebody to get over.
I mean, this isn't like some of the cases that Laura's talking about here. There's a bad actor, right? Someone that's acting in bad faith.
A bad actor making that.
Right, yeah, in some of those cases, right? This isn't that. We've got a doctor here who, is a specialist in this certain thing and seems to find this certain thing way too much, more so than other specialists. But you're right, that is a barrier here because a lot of us, it's, let's err on the side of caution. And we even hear physicians talk about that and this. That makes a lot of sense. But I think the audience needs to have the comfort to examine these cases just like any other wrongful conviction story. Even though this hits differently when we're talking about child abuse, I think that they do sort of let you do that, but I do think that's going to be an obstacle for some audience members, that they can't possibly suspend disbelief enough to get into the topic here. I mean, I think we would agree that child abuse is probably underreported. And so to look at these edge cases isn't apologizing for child abusers, but it's really about this one particular doctor who can really upend a family's life because a child falls down in a legitimate accident and then everybody in the family, it's not an overzealous social worker. This is a doctor that you're supposed to trust their scientific medical opinion, and she's just an agent of chaos.
Yeah. Toby, one of the things that was interesting to me about this podcast, and I'm sure we'll get more into this idea later, is that one larger topic that's not really examined, even though we get hints of it, are the class disparities and the race disparities of people who are being affected by this, right? Are poor people more likely to intersect with the system in this way? Are people of color more likely to be suspected of child abuse when an upper middle class white family might be given the benefit of the doubt in some way? But one of the things I think that the podcast does that's really interesting as an in to the story is they give us the report written by a guy who he does have skin in the game in terms of caring, but he frames it through a very usually effective, especially if you're talking to like dispassionate politicians or whatever, an economic argument that this is bad for the county, that he's like, he's the controller.
Yeah.
And he decides to research and write this report. And then it becomes a matter of, will we get sued or whatever? But I thought that was an interesting take, that sort of, like he wasn't looking at that. He wasn't looking at, or he didn't tell us he was looking at those kinds of more complicated things. It was just, this is costing us too much money and it's bad for people.
Didn't it start where he was like sort of taken aback by the sheer number of cases? And he's like, this is fucked up. I wonder if there's something I can do about it as the controller. And he figured out his sort of way in on this, which is essentially the amount that it was costing for different services to be rendered as these kids are taken away, and so on. It's a very interesting story in both him kind of taking this on, finding a way to do it, and then trying to make an argument that kind of removes maybe some of the emotions around it. But what he kind of runs into is it seems as though the county is trying to protect itself rather than try and figure out what's going on. So, I mean, it's just very ham-handed in the way it's related in this, which is, they're like, well, you're going to lose a few of your staff members. And he's like, oh, shit, like that sucks. And then he decides not to release this report. And they're like, oh, actually, we found the money in the budget so you can have your staff members back. But then he waits for the budget to come out and then he like releases the report.
I called the solicitor. I'm like, I just want you to know the report's going out today. And there's going to be a press conference and we're coming to the commissioners meeting tonight. And he's like, don't do it. Like, don't put it out. And I'm like, no, we're putting it out.
I thought the first two episodes of this were just very, very interesting and very, very strong.
Mm-hmm. Laura, what did you think about this guy? That he's the one who sort of becomes the whistleblower. He's an unlikely, maybe, whistleblower.
It was so weird. I'm listening. I'm like, how is it that this guy is the person that is figuring this out? Like Toby said. And I thought it was really interesting. They were talking about like the numbers of how many cases in this county compared to other counties. And they had like X number more cases of Munchausen than like any, and Munchausen is not like a common thing.
I mean, extremely rare.
Everybody references Munchausen, but that is very rare. And so that's where immediately you're like, okay, ding, 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 red flag. Whoever's diagnosing this is just like super gung-ho in a way that they're seeing things where there aren't things. So that immediately raised my hackles in a way as I was listening because we have one of the, in New Hampshire, he's now retired, but one of the Munchausen experts in the country, Eric Mart, he was somebody they would often put on like 2020 or one of those shows when they were actually profiling cases with suspected Munchausen. So to hear that up front, that you're having a disproportionate number of those cases, to see this guy who's like doing his report and he's like gonna get, I'm like, good for him. And that he was just so willing to talk about it, I thought was awesome. He was extremely forthcoming. But then to segue from that to this meeting where you hear that there's like 100 people lined up at the microphone or whatever.
Our child is 3 months old,
13 years old, her 12-year-old and 17-year-old daughters,
almost 4-month-old son,
2 months old,
my 7-week-old.
We took our oldest child to the emergency room at Lehigh Valley Hospital for help.
And for 7 days, without our permission or legal proceeding, my wife and I were banned from entering the hospital or communicating with our son.
That's where I'm like, I want to hear what happens next.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin, I feel like the county commissioners, they were the county commissioners, right? I mean, yeah. I've been to obviously our town meetings and so forth, but I've been watching a lot of like Canton Select Board meetings lately. And there is this thing that happens, especially during the public comment period, where there's just sort of this general disinterest. Like that might be why you guys are here, but it's not why we're here. Like we're here to do real work. But there is also, somebody said something in the podcast later. It's a doctor who used to supervise Jensen, says something along the lines of, isn't this worth doing so that, if one kid ends up being sent back home and then ends up dying, like, isn't this all worth it for that?
I'd rather have the parents yell at me.
Yeah.
Right.
But do you think that maybe that was kind of what the commissioners were thinking about as they were listening to this?
Well, I mean, I did not commit this heinous crime is a very hard thing for the average person to believe somebody when they say that, right? So I think some of those county commissioners, we hear like some were like going into their laptops, and I think some may have been cautious because of the financial implications of sort of taking responsibility for some of that. I mean, this is, what the solicitor kept sending messages about, right? But I think there are also some of those commissioners that were just not plugged in because they didn't believe it to begin with. They're like, you all beat your kids, you all did whatever to your kids, and now you're here because you didn't get convicted because you're too embarrassed and you want the world to see that. And, it's like, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Both things can be true in the sense that, like, you want to be aggressive when looking at a potential case of abuse, right? And you have people who are mandatory reporters and you should look into it. But that doesn't mean that you should be wrongfully accusing and wrongfully convicting and wrongfully taking action against families when the evidence shows the opposite.
Right.
This is just like any other wrongful conviction case that we see. If you had a detective that kept going to, suicides and saying, no, this is a murder, and it's going to see people who died of a heart attack and say, no, this was a poisoning, that would send off a red flag, right? That would cause all these other things to happen unnecessarily, and people would go to jail for something that didn't even happen.
Yeah.
And so this is what we see here with this one doctor. We don't really get into her until the second episode, but she went all over the country setting up these kinds of things where you're the expert. Well, if they make her the expert and that's her job, she's not going to spend a lot of time saying that's not child abuse.
Right.
She ends up finding a lot of child abuse because when you're a hammer, every fucking thing's a nail.
Yeah. It reminds me recently of this neurologist I saw testify in a high-profile trial about things that he's seen. And it's like, everybody slips on the ice and falls and cracks their head. And that's just what that looks like to me. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be that. And it was like, everybody? It's like, this is a guy from Florida, by the way, who used to practice like in the Midwest. But it's like the characterization, if someone has too much to drink, they slip on the ice and this is what it looks like. And it's like, way to have nuance, Mr. Cocksure.
But guys, it's not even that. It's not like in the world there's gray areas and shit like that. You've got a person here who is committing malpractice.
Well, yeah.
Right? And it isn't just, well, now this person's going to get the wrong medicine. It's that it's breaking up families. It's doing lifelong damage to young children. It's tarnishing the reputations and the confidence of parents. It's sending people to jail. And it's like, well, why? I kind of wish that Dyan got a little more into that. She's not going to give her own opinion, but we don't really ever get the idea of like whether or not Jensen is doing this because she's really bad at her job or she's just sort of motivated to be an avenger and find this wherever she possibly can.
Which also makes her bad at her job.
Right? She's either bad at the medicine part or she's bad at the advocacy part, right? And I wish you kind of got that from other people, what their opinions were on that, because that's kind of one of the fascinating things about that character.
Well, I was just kind of wondering, like, did she have something in her own past that was making her project abuse onto everybody? Like, did she come from an abusive background and so she literally was seeing abuse around every corner?
Well, I mean, if you talk to her boss from Florida, he says 40% of children suffer child abuse. Like, that doesn't even sound right, as far as a number. And again, it's just sort of this idea of like, we are here to save the children. And they do great work when they do. But to be so confident is to realize they may be wrong sometimes. Like, that's just hubris.
It's not as common maybe as diaper rash or sore throats or earaches, but child abuse is 40% or so. So,
but not of the general population.
Of the general population.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's high. That's almost 1 in 2 children.
Yeah.
This feels like you could recast it as kind of a Dr. Death kind of thing, where it's like one doctor who's sort of unhinged from reality without anybody to put the brakes on. When they had people kind of describe her and saying like she was arrogant, she wasn't interested in hearing what anybody else had to say, she was very, very sure of her own opinions. It's like, okay, well, this is the prescription for a person who's going to fuck up a lot, because you need to be able to listen to other opinions in these kinds of situations, because you don't know your blind spots. You're not going to get it right all the time. You can be the smartest person in the room and still get things wrong, or have other people who have more insight into things. It seemed like it was a combination of sort of the wrong person to have doing this, and then having a system where there didn't seem like there were any checks on it. And maybe there were, and they just weren't being very rigid about it. But it seems like the kind of thing where like once a week or once a month, you go through the cases that she's gone through with some other people and be like, what was going on here? Because just the stats alone, when they said that 3% of kids in Pennsylvania live in Lehigh Valley and 1/3 of the Munchausen's cases.
That was crazy.
That's just data. She can be the smartest person in the world. That is data, and that's off. I mean, that's showing either that there's a shitload more people getting Munchausen by proxy somewhere else, or she's out of her mind and she's just seeing it like around every corner. And it's clear what the case is.
Well, we're never going to inundate you with data on Patreon.
No, we're just going to give you great content.
That's right, Kevin. We're in the business section.
Yes, we are in the business section. If you join us at Patreon, patreon.com/partners in crime media, you get all sorts of exclusive content, including the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Married with Podcast, our advice podcast, Rebecca and Mel's Something's Off podcast.
Something's Off!
And Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker. If you join us at the Let's Do What We Do level, you get episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. And if you are a deep diver, you get all that, and you are an official sponsor of the Deep Dive. Another way to support us is to go to our Amazon storefront, where you can see some of our favorite things. Rebecca, tell us, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
Well, Kevin, I bought this skirt. It was like $26. It's a denim skirt. It's awesome. I wore it yesterday. Did I not look amazing yesterday?
You looked amazing.
This denim skirt that I will post a link to is my pick of the week.
All right. And Toby Ball has his listener-inspired Toby Ball's Deep Cut recommendations. Toby, what are your deep cut recommendations?
Well, I'm going to start with one that's very apropos for this particular episode. Statistics for Evidence-Based Practice in Nursing. A textbook.
Oh.
So that's one. Another one, it wasn't submitted by a listener, but was instead submitted by a talker. This is Laura Bricker. Let's see if we can dissect what's going on here. We have the Kuteta stair treads for wooden steps, indoor, 15-pack, 8 inches by 30 inches, non-slip carpet stair treads with reusable adhesive for kids, elders, and dogs. Surface polyester TPR backing, stair runner rugs, dark gray, tools, and home improvement. So, Laura, you're not a kid. I mean, maybe at heart.
I'm the elderly now.
And you're not a dog. So is this your way of coming out as you are now an elder? Is that what's going on here?
I'm an elder. And those are on my basement stairs now because I've had 2 falls in my basement stairs when I've got moving quickly and gone flying. And so they went right on, and Lance is going to get out the stapler thing and staple them on so that they stay really in place.
Rebecca's going to put those on our rowing machine.
Yeah, those are like Stuart's socks, her things.
Yeah.
We actually installed carpet runners on our stairs for exactly the same reason. I was always afraid I was going to fall.
Yeah, it's a scary thing.
So you can find that statistics manual on nursing under Toby's favorite things. Those staircase slipper things are already on Laura's favorite things. It's all there. When you go to Amazon, make us your first stop. Bookmark us when you go there. Amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
Kevin, before we end the business section, do you want to put your deep, sexy voice on and tell us, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Robin Palmer and Julia Sulak. Bless you.
Oof. Wow. Robin and Julia, thank you so much for being our patrons of the week and for contributing to our Patreon so that I could once again hear Kevin do his sexiest voice. I so appreciate you and all the support that you give us. We can't do what we do without you. And I couldn't get my oven heated without Kevin doing that voice,
what?
as has been established. Right, Kevin?
I've got her to preheat the oven, if you know what I mean.
Oh, my.
What did Alec Murdoch say in that thing we're watching?
We still got it, baby.
We still got it, baby.
We still got it, baby.
All right, does thus end the business section?
Pretty quick on him, too. Oh, yes. Thus ends the business section.
Let's fade that music out. Moving on. So, Kevin,
yes.
Looking at your notes, I see you really want to sink your teeth into this, right?
Yeah, just like I want to sink my teeth into HelloFresh.
Oh!
By the way, this isn't the HelloFresh you remember. HelloFresh is now bigger, healthier, and tastier.
Ooh.
So last time I made my order from HelloFresh, I found out that it doubled its menu to 100 options each week. And they still have stuff that sometimes you really don't have a lot of time, so you want something fast, but I'm digging their new premium picks.
Nice.
We both said, really sang the last order we had was the butter-basted steak.
So good.
And scallion gremolata.
So good.
So one of the things that really made this stand out is in addition to basting the steak and then adding the spicy maple syrup glaze to it, they had me whip ricotta cheese.
Yeah.
And it showed me how to sort of like spread it on the plate and then put the roasted vegetables in it. So not only did everything taste great, it looked great too.
Ooh, the best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM.
To get 10 free meals.
That's the FM, free meals.
Plus free breakfast for life.
I like breakfast.
1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only, varies by plan. That's HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM.
To get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. Kevin?
Yes.
Who is the next sponsor for this show?
Oh, we're brought to you by our friends at Rula.
Rula?
Yeah, telehealth has made mental health care accessible for millions of people, but finding a suitable therapist, scheduling appointments, and expensive out-of-pocket costs can still feel like a huge barrier. Thankfully, Rula has you covered. Now, this is, a special time of the year for some folks, but other times it brings up sadness and other feelings of conflict,
dread,
and happiness too. Candy canes, but it's not always candy canes. And sometimes you really want to find someone that you can talk that out with. And while sometimes it might be your sister, she might be the problem at the dinner table. That wouldn't work. So let Rula help you out. Rula partners with a network of over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists, enabling you to find the right therapist for your needs and preferences. And get this, the average copay is as little as $15 a session. So simply answer a few questions and get started as soon as the next day.
Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to Rula.com/CWO
CWO
to get started today. After you sign up and they ask where you heard about them, please tell them our show sent you. Go to RULA.com/CWO and take the first step toward better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. Kevin.
Yes.
Who's the next sponsor for Crime Writers?
Oh, we're brought to you by our friends at Quince.
Yes!
Yeah, as the air turns crisp and the holidays draw near, comfort becomes the best gift of all.
Yep.
Quince delivers layers that last, sweaters, outerwear, and everyday essentials that feel luxurious, look timeless, and make holiday dressing and gifting effortless. Quince makes for great gifts, but Rebecca likes to buy Quince for herself.
Sure do.
Tell us about, are you going to talk about that brown leather jacket that you got?
Yes.
Yeah, it goes with everything?
Yes, I got the little brown moto jacket. It is in cognac. I love this jacket so much. I thought about buying it for a long time. I resisted for some stupid reason. Kevin, I got that jacket a couple weeks ago. How many times have I worn it?
You've worn it like every day.
Almost
you find
every day.
Right, because you put it over a very fancy dress. You put it over jeans.
Yes.
It really does go with everything.
It goes with everything.
But you know what doesn't go with everything? At least you thought? Your original purchase. Oh. You got a different leather jacket.
That's right.
You didn't care for the color, and it was so easy to send back to Quince.
So easy. They make it so easy to do returns and exchanges. I love Quince so much. I buy like a good portion of my clothing there.
So step into the holiday season with layers made to feel good, look polished, and last from Quince. Perfect for gifting or keeping for yourself.
Just go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too.
Bonjour, hi.
That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
Okay, so episode 3 breaks format. I will just say my opinion is that episode 3 should have been episode 2. That's my opinion. I think I understand the punch of ending with a personal story, but Amanda is not a character we had met at all in the podcast, and then she becomes the entirety of episode 3, and it's a very long episode. So I think it would have been a good illustrative episode. That's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong, and people I would be in the editing room with would be like, no, that's not happening. And I would be like, okay, but that's just my opinion. But
bring
Laura,
her in earlier. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, Laura, what did you think about this episode? Because Amanda's story is complicated, and she's the center of some of the controversy around this podcast, right?
Right. Yeah, no, she is. And when I went out and started, like I said, I went down the Reddit rabbit hole. A lot of people posted the stories about her case, which had information that was not in this podcast about her case. But the story of what happened to her and her children, she has, 5 children. And when you first hear the story about how, the little one that's a little older climbs in the bassinet with the younger one, and then that younger one falls out. And it sounds plausible. But you hear the progression of how that younger one is then taken away and just the angst. Like, I felt the angst listening to what she was going through with these home visits with the child protective workers who were coming to do home visits and talk to her. You feel like you're on display in a way that, like, you're afraid to do anything.
I don't know what else to do. Especially if she's not listening the first, second, third time.
She just doesn't. 15, 16. And I don't know, like, what do I... 17. I could put her in timeout. She's going to scream and carry on. It's like, she's loud.
And she's a loud screamer, Amanda says.
I wanted a little context about how it was that the host was able to go and record this home visit with that child protective worker. And yes, you can have anybody there, but just a little 2 sentences about how it was that they got permission to be there would have been interesting for me. Yeah. But hearing about everything she's gone through, and then at the end, essentially, giving up on this line that she was going to hold, this hard line of not letting this person talk to the older kids because she's afraid. And I think, you look at New Hampshire, and I know, the system is broken. So I thought her episode did go on a little bit long. I thought it was a little bit drawn out. And I guess now that I have seen the other news articles on the case, I am curious about why some of that wasn't included, like her potential suspected drug use and other things that if I had heard them would have been like, okay, maybe there's a little more to this story. You know what I mean?
Well, or at least more reason why authorities might suspect something.
Right.
I mean, that's what I was wondering because I knew that there was controversy around this person as well. And I didn't do a deep dive, but I just read some quick stuff. If I am critical of the Serial and the This American Life teams about one thing, I've said it over and over and over again, is they do sometimes sacrifice things that we should know for the sake of the story being better. I have friends who've made stories for them. I've heard about stories about the edits, and it's all about stakes, main character, all this stuff. And sometimes there are things that would be a better tack to take or a more truthful tack to take or a more accurate tack to take that don't serve the story. So they're like, no, that just drags it down. Let's just cut it. And I wonder how much that played a part in here. But that being said, Kevin, this episode was long.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good with Amanda, but I do think that it went on quite long. It was an hour. While it was emotionally complex, I did think there were parts where it dragged. I thought the home visit thing, kind of stalled out. But I think if they had introduced Amanda, not do like an hour on Amanda in the first thing, but plant the flag that she exists, right? Yeah. Because then by the time we get to the end, like if this were a book, you would like weave this character throughout the book,
right?
And you certainly wouldn't just save them at the end because then you like all of a sudden like, well, where does this character come from? And I know this is we're taking this like investigation like piece by piece by piece. But you're right. It ends up being like, okay, now we're shifting gears and I'm really worked up about this doctor. And this is a person who like went through the same kind of system. I don't believe they identified Dr. Jensen as being involved in this case, right?
No, I think she was.
Oh, right. Yes, because they said it was a near fatal fall and think, yeah, okay.
She was the supervisor of the doctor.
She was the supervisor. Okay, yeah, sure. So again, yeah, I think, it's good get. I think you need to have her. I wasn't aware of anything else beyond that, but just going by what I heard, I thought we could have tightened this up a little bit. Or, I mean, it's such an interesting topic. There's got to be other avenues too to kind of fill it out. But I do see sort of like thematically they wanted to be very strict about what these 3 episodes were going to be.
Yeah. Toby, I'm curious about what you think about that because the episode did spend a lot of time and I know this was people might think this was the too long part, but I found this part the most interesting, which is at the end, she has this conflict about whether or not to even fight to bring her baby, who was the source of this whole legal case to begin with, back into the house because she is low-key worried that her daughter might hurt the baby again. And she also sort of believes that the baby might be in a better home now because he's with these parents who really seem to be with him and he's thriving and he's not a baby anymore. He's a kid now. And he's been there a really long time. I thought that stuff was interesting because it really spoke to the consequences long-term for this family. Like, this is a family that will very likely never be completely whole for the rest of their existence because the siblings remember that there was supposed to be a brother if he never comes back, or if he does come back, he's going to be traumatized from being taken away from this other family. And that's going to be a whole situation. What did you think about this episode and the themes that it touched on?
Yeah, I thought it was a little long, to be honest, but I do think it does bring up some stuff which wasn't in the first couple episodes that I think are important, that you kind of summarized. I guess it's a combination of things. One is this whole like better safe than sorry thing. It's not like I'm not going to go to the baseball game because it might rain. There's consequences both ways.
I better bring an umbrella all the time.
Yeah,
yes.
There's consequences both ways. Like removing kids from a family, you need to get that right. You can't just do that because you have a hunch or something. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is just being in the criminal justice system and then coming back out again puts you at so many disadvantages.
Yes.
It's like she doesn't have a car. What was the other thing that she was lacking?
She thought she wasn't allowed to see kids, so she didn't go to any she wasn't social. She didn't go to parties.
Go to the grocery store.
She didn't want to go to the grocery store, all that stuff.
Yeah, so she's concerned that all this stuff is going to be used against her in custody stuff with the kids. So it is kind of this, and we've seen it, many times in other contexts, which is these people who are falsely convicted come out, and it's not like they're heroes and get like this sweet job and stuff. They come out and they struggle, and that's what's going on there. To me, this story, this Dr. Jenssen feels like one of those prosecutors who is withholding evidence or is maliciously prosecuting somebody. It feels the same way. It's like this one person who thinks that they have some kind of unique ability is kind of making these sort of playing God choices for these families. And they don't really have much of a recourse because, it's even worse than normal because they don't have any medical background. So it's like, how do you counteract this?
Even the social worker couldn't. The one who's supposed to make the decision.
Right. Yeah, they kind of have to rubber stamp it.
They pulled him off the case. Yeah.
And then, even if you're like, I demand a second opinion or whatever, it's like, well, those people aren't caps, right? They're good at what they do, but they're not trained in the same way that I'm trained, which is to locate the abuse. So you're kind of stuck. If this Jenssen woman gets you in her sights, it's like you're abusing this kid, even if they have like a congenital, like brittle bone syndrome, like you're just kind of fucked unless somehow you can find a way to get that to come out, which it eventually did, but it was way, way, way too late.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of years ago, This American Life did a story about a drug court judge. I don't know if you remember that one, Kevin. There was this one judge who, and I think it was in the South, who was like, she thought that she knew best about what kids needed. And it was like a very tough love, very toxic, really horrible situation where she was just handing down systemically, no matter what the situation, these like horrible, unfair, also racially disparate choices. And that's what happens, Laura, when you have one person. Like the proposed solution here is what? Second opinions. Like you get that for fucking everything else, or you can request it for everything else. But it's on one person. So what do you think about that?
Right. And I think it's the one person who's now unchecked because they're seen as the, penultimate expert here. That's where when these things do progress to court, you get an expert witness on the other side, but they're like, oh, that's just an expert witness. They're just paid to say that it didn't happen. But I thought it was interesting. At one point they said, we were talking about like you could have all these different doctors look at this and they would all have a different opinion on what happened. And I thought that was really interesting when they brought in some of the voices of the other doctors who were like, well, I would see this or I wouldn't say, and I think that's the hard part here is that obviously nobody wants children to be abused. But at the same time, there are so many other things that can be going on. There are factors, and this was approached from a medical evaluation, but you see this a lot also when you have children that are interviewed. And if they're not interviewed properly, there's child suggestibility, which is a huge issue that we've talked about on this podcast. So you have to take this seriously when you're given that amount of power. And I think the sheer number of people that had issues with this doctor and the fact that at the end, in the last 2 minutes, you're like, and now she's the expert for the FBI. And you're like, so the power has gone unchecked. People don't care. And it's like, and again, this is a hard topic because child abuse is something that people don't want to think that that's something that isn't taken seriously and that people are trying to get out of. But it's like wrongful convictions. They happen. And forced confessions. They happen. So in this situation, if you don't have the means to get an expert witness to come in and evaluate your medical records in your case for your child, you're kind of up shit's creek.
Don't you think part of the issue, Kevin, is the hubris that someone gets when they are appointed, like the only and best expert on something? So for instance, and I see this all the time at work even, like an editor will listen to a thing that I've also listened to, a different editor, and they will have all of these suggestions because they feel like they're supposed to edit. Like, that's my job. I'm supposed to say there's problems with this. And sometimes I'll listen to it and I'll be like, this is fucking fine. Like, I have some mixing notes, but like, it's really good as it is. And, it's not me being a pushover. It's me realizing that just because I have a job title doesn't mean I always need to swing that hammer, right? It's like you call the washing machine repairman. He's going to find a problem with your washing machine. You go to the mechanic, they're going to find a problem with your car. That's what this seems like. Like she has to always see the thing that she's an expert in.
Like she has a hero complex.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, could be. I mean, we just listened to a podcast, Breakdown, which was a very similar thing. You had parents who, their child died, their newborn died. So you're like, well, that's suspicious. It's got to be abuse. And we find out later that there was a medical issue. At least those doctors there were working. I mean, I think there was some question about like whether or not some information that the pathologist had was hidden, but those doctors were operating in good faith. When they looked at this case, they didn't know X, Y, or Z, but that seems to be, everything seems to be pointing to that. And this here, it's like you have, it's like bite marks. Toby, you remember that book, The Country Coroner and the
Country Dentist and the Cadaver King.
And the Cadaver King, right? Just some guy, bite marks. Yeah, these bite marks fit everything. That they just were so high on their own supply. It's very intoxicating to be the expert that everybody's looking at.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like I'm the one arson expert that can figure out where all these fires are coming from, right? That's why this is such an interesting case to me. And it's a fallacy to think that you can't have both things, that you can't be vigilant and protect children and have a system that looks for that and catches that, but that it's impossible to like do that and not be on the guard for people who are bad at this and are catching the wrong people. It's like when we send people to jail for murder and they get out 20 years later, it's like, oh, well, the system worked. You're like, no, the system didn't work.
And I think one of the frustrating things here is that they didn't even give people an opportunity to be questioned about their children. They didn't even talk to them. She just blanket made this determination. And how many people they're like, they never even talked to us. They just took our kids away.
You know what's telling, though, is that she would follow up with the prosecutors, right? And if they're not, so it means that she is keeping tabs on where these cases are going. And I don't know if she's like doing that because as a patient, doctor, like you normally would do that. But she is certainly demonstrating that she is inclined to push as hard as she can, which, I think is very revealing when you find out how wrong she is, how statistically out of whack she is with the rest of the industry or the rest of the profession. It's a really bad look. But to be like, oh, well, I would much rather be safe than sorry. I get that. We'd like to be more safe than sorry when it comes to homicides. But the people that are like really into true crime and justice issues know, get it right the first time. It isn't like an excuse to put the wrong people in the frame.
Ruin their lives.
Yeah. It's like that. We should call that out too.
The other thing that I was thinking about was the child abuse. It's like a special case. Like you think about satanic ritual abuse and how that was, like, I don't know how widely accepted, but it was accepted within at least some area of mainstream psychology. So I do think there are, like, if you deal with traumatized and abused kids, I think you get into this super protective mode where you do feel like you have to save all of them. Like I can see where that can happen, but I think that's what you need to have systems in place. Like, I don't know if Pennsylvania does, but if they don't, there's got to be a supervisory board for these things that take a look at the cases, take a look at the data, like how many of these things, and just make sure everything is kind of falling, like it's all being normal, right? You don't have somebody with a savior complex, or you don't have somebody who, again, thinks they know better than anybody else, and that the fact that like I'm sort of an outlier isn't a reflection on me. It's a reflection on everybody else who's not getting it.
Right.
So anyway, it seems like it's a systemic failure in addition to just like this one person who, for whatever reason, is just out of control and there's not an obvious way to stop her.
I'm just going to say one thing that may be unpopular, but I just kept thinking about it. They don't have her in the podcast, and they only have one person who is a former supervisor of hers, and he has nothing to say except good things about her work, right? And I feel like the podcast invites us to assign motivation or to assign sentiment to her decision-making in a way that is not fair, because it could very well be that this person, as much of an outlier as she's getting it wrong a lot of the time, really is going to work every day, like thinking like, I want to do the best I possibly can for people. And we don't have the opportunity to consider that in the podcast. And that's a big criticism I have about it, is that we're introduced to a villain that we never meet. The only corroborating thing we hear about her is that she's awesome, and that we are invited to feel a certain way, I think, in a way that has his thumb on the scale.
I think that's what I was like what I said about, like, do we know whether or not maybe she's just bad at this?
Yeah, right. But we're not, that is not considered. It's not weighed.
Right, yeah.
I mean, does it matter if she's super nice?
No, but it does. I think it matters as far as the journalism goes about whether or not that is weighed, and it's not weighed here.
Yeah. Like, I don't come away with the idea that she's like intentionally misdiagnosing all these things. I mean, that wasn't the impression I got. It didn't seem like anybody else was saying that either. It's just she's seeing shadows. There's a point at which it's like whatever your intentions are, it's like the outcomes are what's important, and the outcomes are really off.
Tired of drafty windows and rising energy bills? Well, now is the perfect time to get beautiful replacement windows and doors from Renewal by Andersen. For a limited time, get no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 24 months with a minimum of 6. That's right, 2 full years to enjoy warmer rooms, lower bills, and beautiful new windows without paying a dime up front. Visit renewalbyandersen.com to schedule your free consultation today. Hurry, this offer ends December 1st.
Pacifico is a Mexican lager brewed to be discovered. It's like fresh tracks on a powder day. Like that uncharted trail a stone's throw away. Like the perfect wave on a sunny day. Pacifico, find your own way. 21 plus, drink responsibly. Imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
Always so fresh, delicious, and nutritious, Eggland's Best Eggs fuel the body with 6 times more vitamin D, 10 times more vitamin E, and 25% less saturated fat compared to ordinary eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com to learn more.
'Tis the season of gifting and halls to deck, and the Who's and Who Newville were in love with new tech. Where can we find Sonos and Samsung and Nintendo, they shouted. Would they find it in one place? This they questioned and doubted. When suddenly a Who yelled, Walmart's the place to start! And each Who added headphones, TVs, and games to their carts. With Walmart, their shopping was done in a flurry. They cried out, Who knew? And ordered their gifts in a hurry. Shop the latest tech gifts in the Walmart app.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out The Preventionist from the New York Times and Serial Productions. It's only a 3-part podcast, one of my favorite new formats for podcasting. We're actually doing one of those at NHPR right now, and I think that's right to do it that way. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for The Preventionist?
Yeah, this is a big thumbs up for me. As somebody that works in a field doing defense investigations where I have seen false reports of abuse in different cases, it's a controversial issue to take on because nobody wants to acknowledge that there are cases of false claims or cases that maybe don't rise to the level of prosecuting somebody or taking their children away. And so I think this had a lot of good voices. It was 3 episodes. It was something that I just binged on one drive, and I kept on driving so that I could finish it. It was compelling to listen to. For me, it was rage-inducing. And, there were some questions that I would have answered that they didn't follow up on. But overall, I thought this provided a really good snapshot, particularly for those of us here in New Hampshire where, the child welfare system in New Hampshire has also been under scrutiny in recent years, to hear that this is something across the country that other states are also grappling with and how they're handling, I thought was very interesting. So thumbs up from me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for The Preventionist?
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up as well. I thought the first 2 episodes were great. The 3rd episode was still really, really good. The pacing I think was a little bit off. But yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult issue in general, although the case they find here, I think is pretty, like there are these sort of moral and ethical issues that are there, but it's not quite as gray maybe as some other things are. But there's a lot to think about. There's obviously, like if you listen to our conversation, there's a lot to talk about. And it's good reporting. And my guess is that it's probably a more extreme example of something that probably goes on a hell of a lot in our country and probably isn't talked about very much. So yeah, I'm a strong thumbs up on this.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm also thumbs up. I echo a lot of actually Toby's comments here about, I thought these first 2 episodes were strong. The 3rd kind of dragged a bit, but that doesn't mean that this isn't very compelling listening. The best true crime is the stuff that doesn't look at when the system works right. It looks at when the system works wrongly. And this is a great example of a breakdown in a system designed to protect children. It may protect children the right way a lot of the time, but we cannot turn a blind eye to instances and systems in place that put people in a situation where they're wrongfully accused, not wrongfully accused of being a perpetrator, but wrongfully accused of a thing that never happened. Particularly at the hands of one particular doctor. But we certainly see that throughout. They make a good case that, a lot of these specialists, because this is what they've decided that they're called to do, may find things that aren't there because that's their job. It's very interesting. I think very few of us are worried about being falsely accused of murder, but it really hits differently when you think about, well, what would you do if you were accused of harming your child and a doctor said that you did it? I think that resonates and hits differently for folks. It's a really interesting discussion. It was pretty rage-inducing. I think that once you get your mind around the idea that this is a story very much like any other wrongful conviction story, but instead of murder, it has to do with a person that continues to jam up people in cases of child abuse that probably didn't happen at all, then I think that you are ready to listen to The Preventionist, and I think you'll find it very enlightening.
I am a mild thumbs up for The Preventionist. I think much of it is excellent. I really do. But I don't think the reporting is as bulletproof as it needs to be to make a convincing case for a large-scale audience. I'm not saying I wasn't convinced by some of the data and so forth, but a lot of it has to do with the structure of the podcast, because we have a very, very vulnerable person profiled in episode 3 in an extended look. And I don't think it's like a plot spoiler to say that this person said that they could use the tape, but then later said they weren't going to talk to Dyan Neary more because it might be used against them in court. And I kept thinking about this. I kept thinking, like, was this the right person to use to illustrate your story? Because A, they're still very vulnerable and they're still really in it. And I kept thinking about the harm that might happen to them because of this podcast, which, by the way, is on some level not the reporter's fault because the woman invited them to talk or whatever. But I wonder if a little more sourcing on that end would have helped me with this, because there is extra textual stuff you can read, and there's criticism about this podcast that I don't think the podcast did a good job girding itself against. And I think that the New York Times does know how to do that. And I think they should have done that by restructuring the podcast a little bit. So Amanda's story had a little more time and that nuance could come in. And also perhaps getting more people trying to explain what our antagonist might be doing, might try to be doing. Is there any times where she's been successful? Like, I had questions. I ended it with questions that I don't feel like I have after reading like a bang up New York Times article. So that's why I'm not a strong thumbs up for this, but I will say it's a good listen. And much of it is really excellent. So if you want to listen to an anger-inducing podcast that's along the lines of, serialized storytelling, this is a very compelling listen, but I did leave it with questions that keep me from giving it a full-throated thumbs up. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
We do. This one came to us from Andrea Norman, one of our listeners and our official Crime Writers on Facebook discussion group. And it is a cat of the week from down under, Mango the Muster Cat. Mango the Muster Cat draws attention to Western Queensland's ongoing recovery. So this cat is bringing awareness to the plight of the outback after disaster. And it's a ginger cat. We know I love ginger boy cats. Perched on its owner lap is touring the area by motorbike. So this cat goes along on a motorcycle. It was raised
Is it in a sidecar or just like on the seat?
It's got little goggles that it wears when it goes out on the motorbike.
I love when animals are on motorcycles with goggles.
Yeah, and so basically Mango the cat is out and about talking about things that are happening in Australia. There are videos all over social media of Mango the Muster, who acts like they're just one of the dogs. Here's Mango riding along with some dogs in like one of those gator things.
Yeah.
So I love cats that act like dogs, and I love ginger cats. And I love cats from around the world. So thank you for sending this one in, Andrea.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I'm sure we're going to get added at by people who say you shouldn't put an animal on a motorcycle because it's dangerous. Well, guess what? People shouldn't be on them either. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Those things are not good for people.
Mango is an influencer, has its own Facebook page, and people send packages to Mango. There are ladies who even bake him his own treats. He gets tins of salmon, cat clothes, and little shoes.
Nice.
A pair of tiny Crocs was sent by a fan of Mango.
All right, Laura Bricker, folks want to reach out to you and perhaps pitch you a story or an animal to be cat of the week. How can they find you online?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
What about you, Toby? How can you be found online?
At TobyBall NH on Blue Sky, at TobyBall603 on the Instagram.
What about you, Kevin? How can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can find me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. You can find the show everywhere at Crime Writers On. Mostly, though, I encourage you to join our Facebook group. I say it every time. And every week when I say it, we get a few new people, which is why I keep saying it. Our Facebook group is awesome. The people there are smart. And if they're not, and if they're mean, they get kicked out. Like, it's a really good group. Really, really good. Get everything we make on Patreon. People say it's too much. I love that. Patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the wonderful Liv Burdett. Livy, I'm sorry I said you had strident opinions. I was joking. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show is recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also love to pour over financial disclosures for county agencies to find waste, abuse, and fraud. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
I like that Lara's thing looks like the special effects from the 60s where you just had somebody wearing a black shirt on a black background so it looked like their head was floating in space.
Yeah. Didn't they do that on Electric Company?
Yeah, probably.
I think that, actually, I think you're right.
In crime media.
Pacifico is a Mexican lager brewed to be discovered. It's like fresh tracks on a powder day. Like that uncharted trail a stone's throw away. Like the perfect wave on a sunny day. Pacifico. Find your own way. 21 plus. Drink responsibly. Imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
Always so fresh, delicious, and nutritious, Eggland's Best Eggs fuel the body with 6 times more vitamin D, 10 times more vitamin E, and 25% less saturated fat compared to ordinary eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com to learn more.
The Who's down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.